Hey, Scott Hilton here for another Scott Talks. Just at the pool area in our neighborhood. Got a nice seat, cleaned my little section of the table off that I usually sit at, nice and clean. None of the other tables are that clean, and I was like, they have paper towels in the bathroom, a little water. Brought my water in my little swell bottle. Got my little protein bar. This is the Lemon Quest bar. Just break it off, put it back in a Ziploc bag, put it in my pocket, go for my walk. On my walk, got my bone conducting headphones in for the walk and for watching some YouTube videos if I feel like it. It's an interesting thing being on YouTube. It's kind of like a video selfie. Who's going to watch this stuff? Well, people actually watch it. It's strange. And, it's not like when I was a kid, we had these old movies to watch. Dad would record, and they didn't have sound, some of those. So that was back in the dark ages. But today, just being here in Florida, I just wanted to talk about the advantages of being down here. We're thinking of leaving the Spring Hill area for the Ocala area, but it'll still be much more central, so less storms. But we're leaving. The taxes will be cheaper, smaller house. We're at my wife's parents' house. They passed, and we're just been there a year or two, and it's time to just say, it's too big and it's got too much, and let's sell this thing and just get a normal house. And we looked around, and Orlando area, it'd be cool to be near Disney and we'd go to Epcot and see one of the bands at the end of the night. And I found out there are 3 shows actually at Epcot, like 5, something, 6, 7 or something, and it ends up at 8. And they run about 30 minutes, 45 minutes, but they're bigger name stuff. You go to Disney Springs and the band is some local person that everybody loves, and they're great musicians, and they run about 45 minutes on some of those shows. And you get at that big area at Disney Springs and sit and wrap up your day, grab a little coffee drink or something at the end, I think it's Jaffe's coffee, and go. And you get you a little something at Epcot, and you can just sit there, and then all those seats that are kind of curved, that big auditorium, right? I think it's near America. And when it's done, it's usually, if you see the last show, it's usually good for the fireworks. So we thought that would be kind of cool to be in that area where we could get there and back. And the house prices were like through the roof. You were at Winter Garden, in different places, St. Cloud. There were Kissimmee. You weren't even in Orlando. You weren't even in the city next to Orlando. You're over here, and they knew you were close to Orlando. And we'd go to a realtor in Ocala, and they were building this model home that my wife liked. And we looked at the price and the home. Oh yeah, that's cool. And then you go in that Orlando area, and you're like, oh yeah, we've seen this house, blah, 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 and it's 100,000 more. And you're like, wow, really? For what? And they're like, well, the land here is more expensive. And you're like, ugh. So Ocala they have the same stores pretty much than everybody else. So that's the reason we're moving. It's just further from the storms. We've had storms here that were pretty bad, but they weren't that bad. They weren't, it wasn't like the coastal area. Coastal area is crazy. Of course, the coastal area prices are coastal area prices. Anything near the coast is huge, and then the insurance is through the roof there. And the price of the homes and land is crazy. So, but being near Orlando, the Villages wasn't bad, but it's like 80 some miles of villages, and they had those 3 or 4 little places where they have shops and areas you can go visit in your golf cart, and you can drive all over the place in your golf cart. But it's something you wanted to see. If you wanted to go to the nice one that's up north, where you can go see shows and see the shops, the nice shops, you're going by car. You're not driving golf cart in that sucker, And if it's too far away, you're going by car. It might be fun to be 30 minutes, 45 minutes in your golf cart, but eventually you're just going to go, we can just drive and park and walk and take our little chairs and sit down and enjoy the day, which is fine. And the Villages for me was like the places they were showing us were near the interstate, and you could hear the traffic, and you were like, ugh, I don't know. We were in Ocala. We saw these nice places, and they were quiet. Especially Stone Creek. Stone Creek and On Top of the World were the two places we liked best. So we're still looking around. But yeah, there's some nice areas in Ocala, nice neighborhoods, nice developments, and it's growing. And it still has pretty cheap taxes and pretty cheap cost of living. And all the same places are there. Almost all they have an Olive Garden. They have a little mall that's not a great mall, but most malls in America are going under anyway, so that's irrelevant. And they have big shopping centers, for some nice stores, and it's all the same thing. So it doesn't matter where you're at. You've still got your Olive Garden and your Pizza Huts and your McDonald's and some nice restaurants. And if you want, but the nightlife in Ocala is, when it gets dark, they start wrapping up. It's not going to be like the Orlando area, party, and all night long, and everyone's out and about, buzzing around, crazy tourists everywhere, which is probably a good thing when you're not down there. But being in the middle of the state gets you away from the storms even more and increases your odds. The big thing to watch out for, you could have the whole east half of our country could have tornadoes, technically. And there are occasional, I remember being in Charlotte, we had an earthquake. We had a hurricane go through Charlotte, Hurricane Hugo. So you just never know. And Asheville just got wiped out pretty bad. And Blowing Rock and all that. And the mountains in North Carolina got hit by that hurricane that hit Florida. And you're like, oh my gosh. And, everyone's calling me, how are you doing? How are you in Spring Hill? We're fine. I got to pick up some limbs. But other than that, pretty good. Yeah, pretty good. So it wasn't bad. Spring Hill's nice. It's the Spring Hill Brooksville area, because there was a big debate when her parents bought the house. It was like Brooksville, Spring Hill, which one would grow the most, because they were in the middle. And everyone figured Brooksville would do it, but it turned out that Spring Hill grew a little bit faster. But you can turn either way. You can turn towards Brooksville and go to places. You can go to Spring Hill. A lot of places are on Cortez. Cortez has a lot of the restaurants a lot of the places like that. And on Ocala, it's on 200. There's a highway that has a lot of the restaurants and shops in the mall. You go up and down that, and you get the familiar amount of stuff, even though it's a small town. And if you need the real fancy stuff, you go to Gainesville, which is up the street, about 45 minutes. And if you need to go to the airport, Gainesville goes to Atlanta and Charlotte. And then from there, you can take big international flights to different places. So you calculate that as your jump point to go. Our recommendation, we did an international flight, ended up in Canada, and we spent the night there, and then in the morning got up to go. And I didn't have my internet there, my Wi-Fi, my phone service, you know what I mean? And you were like, if we had bounced to some middle city in America, I would still have phone service. So I was like, yeah, but it was it was a cheap flight, so it wasn't bad. But it was interesting. It wasn't super high end where we were, because we were near the airport. But they had a huge airport. God, it was big. Because you could see the planes and the track things for your stuff, for passengers. And then over here, they had all the mailing for Air Canada stuff and FedEx, and all that land had been designated for all these airports. So as you were driving to the hotel, it was just airport, 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 more airport, more airport. I like, wow, this is huge. And I would look out the window, and we had a view of the airport. We did a little tiny thing, like it's so far away. But you would see planes going overhead occasionally. Like, oh, that's so cool. But if you can, try to get us, if you're going to be jumping off from one plane to another, or spending a night somewhere, we should have just a couple hours off, and that would have been it. But ours was, jump off here, and then the next morning you jump on and go. So it was okay. It wasn't bad. We didn't mind it. Just getting off that plane was nice, because your standard seats on these planes, these Airbuses, They're tight, baby. They're tight. We're getting too old for this crap. Our knees touching the seat in front of you. I mean, I was ready to go business or first class if we could, and there was nothing available, of course. And it would have been thousands more. And I was like, God, didn't sleep. I was miserable going down. I did sleep on the way back because I watched a movie. I didn't want to watch any movies. And I had a window seat. I really wish I had the aisle seat because I could have gotten up, gone to the bathroom, come back, and I wouldn't have to bother people. Like, excuse me, I gotta go. Yeah. So, my advice: aisle seat, because you can stick your leg out a little bit, but then you have to watch. They'll have to wake you to move your dumb leg out of the way as people go by, or the cart comes through with another snack or a little meal. But it gives you a smudge of room. You can kind of bend out back in. So. But I was next to the window, and the window's like here, and I'm trying to sleep, and you can hear that vibration, the noise, and there was the wing, and so that meant the engine was there, and I was like, oh God, and I'm trying to watch the movie, and I'm trying to turn the volume up a little bit because you can still hear a little, and I'm turning the movie volume up, and it's louder than I should have it on. So when we're getting off the plane and going places, my wife's like, hey, and I'm like, what? I was having a hard time hearing for a day or two. I was having a hard time hearing because it was just too much noise. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's bad. So on the way back, I got the aisle seat. I was like, cool. And that was bad. I slept a little bit. And I know I slept a little bit on the way back because I was watching the movie, and what happened? I missed a chunk of it. So I did get a nap. That was cool. And then you go to these countries. Once we got there, of course, it was worth it. It was amazing. And, but back to Ocala and back to, it's going to be fine there. I would look for flood zones. It can flood in Ocala, even being up high and stuff, because there are dips in the area. You don't want to be near any lakes or giant ponds that can flood anywhere. In the mountains, they had places where we would go to Asheville, and places you walked into a little general store, and I was looking at the side of the store about a foot off the ground. There was this water line. I said, dang, this place flooded one time. That's bad. And then we went to another store. It was closed due to flooding. And I was like, whoa, it looks like this whole street flooded. And then you go on YouTube, you can find the floods. You can see the businesses. And I can see them on Ocala. There's a street that wasn't flooded. And I guess it was downhill and it all gathered up. And there's some areas in Ocala that had flooded. So just make sure you're not in the flood zone if you go anywhere. And that was the biggest thing. You get a good HOA or a good deal because you have to pay monthly payments, or if you're living in a house. There aren't as many high-end jobs in Ocala. Get in the medical field, there are hospitals. The horse place is there, of course, restaurants, that stuff. And they don't have a lot of Ubers and Lyfts and taxis and bus service type things in Ocala. It's kind of small for that. But otherwise, it looks like it's going to be a great little town to live in. It wouldn't be bad. It won't be bad. So we're looking forward to it eventually. And Spring Hill's nice too. I mean, we are in a community that's near the Suncoast Trail, so I can get on my bike and just ride and ride. It's like 20 miles this way towards Tampa, 20 miles that way. It's a 40-some mile trip, and we're about in the middle. We're kind of more one way than the other, but you know what I mean. And avoiding traffic almost the entire way. Every once in a while, a street might cross over, or it might turn off and intersect with a couple of streets as it goes down the interstate. It usually follows the interstate in a lot of areas. And even with bone conducting headphones, it gets a little loud at some spots, although there are trees in between. In bone conducting headphones, you do this and cheat a little bit and get a little sound there. You put an earplug in, turn it up a little bit, because you got your ear pods. That's great, but with the bike, you want to listen for people coming up on you fast. I've been passed by scooters and about 5 or 6 of these guys that are on those race bikes that just fly by you. And sometimes they don't announce anything anyway. And you're like, really? Thanks. So you enjoy wherever you go. Enjoy wherever you live. If you're still working, make sure you got a job, or you know there's so many opportunities you can get something. Ocala doesn't have as huge amount of opportunities as in Orlando. Orlando's a huge city. It's kind of 24/7 in some places. And being near that, you can at least get to work, right? But it can be a little more expensive. So you have to plan on that. You have to plan on, what am I going to live? What am I going to do? You know, being near Disney is a cool idea. You know, in Spring Hill, we would stay at the Hilton right at Disney Springs, which would have bus services to Disney. Cool. And we didn't have to stay at the super expensive Disney hotels. They can be a little cost cutter, you know, they can get you. But you take what you can get, and then you can start your day at Disney Springs, and then the last day you go to Disney Springs, and then you book a lot of dinners at Disney Springs, and you can leave the park early. As you get older, staying all day at the park. You know, we saw, you know, Star Wars area, hung out, did the big rides, and went back. And we had dinner at Disney Springs. And that means we were next to the hotel, and we wrapped up. We did a little walk around Disney Springs, and we went to the hotel and crashed because we had another day to go at one of the Disney parks. And we picked the bus up, and now it has an appointment based on an app. You have to book an appointment or book a ride on the bus. And they have the sign downstairs with the QR code. So that was fun. And we did that, and it was cool. And you went to a little area where they had snacks and food they could get for breakfast, and you get some snacks and food, and you hit the road, baby. It's cool. It was fine. We've done it several times. It's a good thing for us. We understand where it is. We know we cross the little bridge and over the bridge to Disney Springs, and you're there, and you grab a sandwich at Earl's Sandwich right away, or you just keep going through the other shops and things like that. And the Boathouse is the main restaurant to eat at. We've eaten at Wine Bar George. It was good. And you know, there are a lot of nice places. Gideon's has these great cookies that my doctor would say, there's tons of salt in that. And I'm like, yeah, there really was. And all the chocolate caffeine, yeah, that was bad too. Don't do that. Yeah, okay. And we ate on that cookie for every night. We would come back and get on the balcony, and because we like a little balcony. And we got on the balcony, and we and not at this location. This is another time we went, because the Hilton didn't have balconies. But another place we stayed, we had a balcony, and we had sat on the balcony, and from a distance you could see the park's fireworks popping. And we ate our little cookie, and then the next night we did that with Margaritaville Resort, which was all right. Had a neat walk-in pool with, you know, the zero entry where it's like at the beach where you just kind of stroll in. There's no stairs or dip. It just kind of goes in. And we sat there at the goes in area and cruised around the pool a little, and then came back and sat. That was good enough for us. You know, we did one day at the pool. But that's where they had the balcony, and we watched. That was interesting. It was like, we didn't think, you know, there's tons of shopping around there, tons of places to go if you're going to stay. But we were like, it's all right. It has a lot of Margaritaville, Jimmy Buffett themes everywhere, but they look forced. They look like they had put this big painting here and this statue of a parrot or something. You know, everything had the flip-flop, and it was just like, oh yeah, and souvenir shop, and you know, yeah. But in the end, the rooms had a very beach vibe to them, and that's where you were. And you know, it was like, yeah, this is kind of neat, but it didn't have the magic of a Disney resort. Because we've done the Disney Resort once, and it was interesting, but it was wild how they forced you into the gift shop to make your way, and the place to eat right there, to make your way to the bus, to pick you up. You see what I mean? And coming back, you're in that little area you could eat, or you could go through the gift shop and then go back towards your room. So they had you coming and going. You want to buy something, man? Get a souvenir T-shirt right now. Yeah, that was interesting. So if you're going to Florida, enjoy Florida. If you're visiting Florida, enjoy Florida. And we'll talk another day. Thumbs up, like, and subscribe if you learned anything. Thanks.